Make it as primary residence.
One of the other things about GreenStar I wanted to tell you about, before I tell you about some of the other benefits that have been discovered in communities who have done similar things that we have tried, is water conservation. Minnesota GreenStar far exceeds the lead expectation. The U.S. Green Building Council's lead design expectations on water conservation. I like that. I like it a lot. Now, we live in 9 to 10,000 lakes, or 14,537. I have no idea how many lakes we actually have. But 14,000? How many?
I believe it's, I learned in elementary school, it's about 14,000.
Yeah.
Something. It's closer to 15 than 10,000.
I was referring to lakes over 100 acres. So
They didn't tell us all the details now. But I still remember that, like, 15 years later.
And I'm glad you do, and I'm glad, and I hope you remember the speech. Are you taking notes?
I actually did take a few notes, and
I
we
saw
did
you
a few of
doing
it.
that. Good. We see water all over the place with all these lakes, all the surface water. We don't have very much trouble reaching down into the aquifers and finding water for our homes. We've got great waste treatment plants. We've got rivers flowing through Minnesota. How many rivers flow into Minnesota? I mean, I don't even bother to guess you. There's none. Yeah, she knows. She was taught that in elementary school. See, not only are we dependent on coal and every cubic foot of natural gas and oil of every kind, we're dependent on water that doesn't stay here. The water never stays here. The water that falls on our land ends up in the South Pass and in what is now the green zone, the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico, where no fish can survive. And the greatest contributor to killing all these fish is not what the Mississippi River collects over its entire course. The primary poisons are collected in the Minnesota River Valley that are killing the fish in the Gulf of Mexico. Everything that comes off of our land goes into a river that goes somewhere else. Now, water is a problem not just for us. The Ogallala Aquifer, which 7 states now rely on, has fallen 7 feet in the last 20 years. Most of the water on Earth is salt water. And unless you got a desalination plant somewhere, it's not going to help you much. Only 3% of the water on Earth is fresh water. And 2/3 of that is locked up in our ice caps. So 1% of all of the fresh water on Earth is in surface groundwater and aquifers. The rain really is important to us. And the Minnesota GreenStar program has a very, very, very strict set of rules about how you conserve water. So I'm proud to say in this house, using one of the foremost landscape architects in the world today, my daughter Lacey, she has designed a water collection system that captures all the rainwater that falls on the roof of the house and then goes into a cistern, and then through drip irrigation handles all of the plant beds, and it will be sodded with low-mow or no-mow grasses, and all of the species, the native species, are going to be drought tolerant. Because if you saw one of the stories that I wrote from InPost the other day, that even in green roofs, that you see so much of and are employed and you get points for, that green roofs in Minnesota are having problems not just because of the snow, and in fact, not because of the snow and cold at all. They're having problems because of the drought in Minnesota, which is more severe than almost any other state in the union. We don't even think about it. We don't even think about it. And so what my goal and what the Minnesota GreenStar's goal is that for every drop of water that falls on the property that I have will stay on that property. You don't send anything down into the gutters. You don't send any poisons that are picked up as it runs down the street to find the gutter hole, that it will pick up antifreeze and oils and gasolines and debris. That everything falls, stays there with rain gardens and what have you. 200 million people in India right now have no access to any drinking water. 400 million people in India are in a water stress situation. In sub-Saharan Africa, women in the tribe spend 8 hours a day walking to and from water supplies, are fetid water supplies. 90% of the illnesses that kill children in developing countries are waterborne. So is it smart for GreenStar to think about water?
Yes.
Of course it is. Of all of the resources that we are worried about, and I know a lot about the resources remaining in this country and in the world. Peak oil, I know that we only have maybe 5 more years before we hit the wall on that. The Garwal field in Saudi Arabia is about dry. The Cantarell field in Mexico is almost dry. We're digging up millions and millions and millions of acres in the Athabasca Range to bring the tar sands out so we can get 3 million barrels a day. 3 million barrels a day. That's not sustainable. It's not sustainable if we continue on this path that we're on right now, where we're reaching out to China and say we're going to lift you up to our standard. Every person in China is going to live at our standard, and be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. Because here is what Lester Brown says, an energy economist. Currently, every day in the world, we use 86 million barrels of oil. In the world, every day, 86 million barrels of oil. We are using 4 barrels for every one we discover. And it doesn't take a genius to know that's not sustainable. But here's what's not sustainable. By 2040, if China stays on its same GDP growth, the curve that is currently on, China will, by itself, use 99 million barrels of oil per day. More than the entire world consumes today. So in order to meet that need, according to the International Energy Agency, we are going to have to discover in the next 30 years 5 new Saudi Arabias. That ought to be easy. It's like we haven't been looking. Wouldn't it have been nice if we could have found some Saudi Arabia? They say, well, how about the Bakken field out here? How about out in Williston? We've got 500 billion barrels of oil sitting there. True, but the USGS says only 1% of that's recoverable. So, 5 million barrels. Let's see. That would last the world 10 days. 10 days. So we have an unsustainable practice. What Minnesota GreenStar is trying to do is urge people to be wise, to take what we have and make it last as long as possible. If you built by the old standards, and many of you did build by the old standards. My house that I currently live in, 1950, was built by the old standards. I figure about 40% of my heating bills in the winter is spent heating the outdoors. Nobody insulated like that. I mean, what were they insulating with? Newspaper? If I did a door blower test in my house, I'd be ashamed. Back then, the envelopes weren't supposed to be tight. Supposed to breathe. That's what they kept telling us.
Sure did.
Yeah. And now you build them tighter than a drum head.
Unless you live in my friend.
And then you put good exchangers in there, bring in new air. You remember when you used to walk into new houses 30 years ago and I love the smell of a new house. And you stayed in that house for about 15 more years and kept breathing that stuff and it kept smelling like a new house, you'd die of cancer. The smell of a new house is not a good smell. The smell of a Minnesota GreenStar house when you walk in doesn't smell like a new house. There are no poisons in it. See, because sustainability just doesn't go to fuels and resources, it goes to your life. There's so much good that Minnesota GreenStar is doing. But there is a political obstacle that stands in the way of every great idea. And the way we can remove that obstacle is by showing them that it works. By encouraging everybody to think about it, maybe step by step. Maybe you just don't go out and build a whole brand new LEED certified Minnesota GreenStar Gold house. Maybe you don't go out and remodel and spend $500,000 to remodel a $200,000 house just so it could be certified. Maybe you do a little at a time. Maybe you work toward a GreenStar certification. And maybe it takes the contractors and suppliers in the room to have conversations with people as part of their sales pitch that we can do good as we do well. And we can help you be part of a future of sustainability. We can help you. Now let me just touch on a couple of things before I quit. Then I'll answer any questions you might have. But what is the value of a greenhouse? What is the value of reusing? Monoman's over here. They're putting the floors in my house. They buy old bridges and barns and resaw the timbers, and you don't have to worry about a sustainable forest product. This thing came out of the forest 100 years ago. It's already been used for something else for 100 years. And now it's going to be used for another 100 years. And I can't wait to see what these floors look like because I've been out at the plant and it's beautiful. Just beautiful stuff. People are putting in the pavers. You can put in concrete pavers you want to. You can do all of that. No. The pavers that we're getting made right down here, a little ways away from us. The pavers are 95% post-consumer products made out of one of the biggest blights that we have in our environment with absolutely no way of getting rid of it unless somebody comes up with a great idea like this, and that's tires. Remade tires, and now they're pervious pavers, which allows the water to seep back down into the aquifer. That's not running down asphalt or concrete. The ceiling, the roof rather, there is a company that uses 99.5% post-consumer products to make a shingle for a roof that they guarantee for 100 years. 100 years. I put on my house, I put a new roof on my house about every 7 years. And it's no fun. I'm going to enjoy living in a house where I don't have to do that for 100 years. I intend to live that long.